Thank you for watching Ahmed Shakil 5858. I am Ahmed Budnan. Following all the world news by American, European and Canadian channels, African, Asian channels and all news agencies have reported the same news. Now the headlines. Congress members are working hard to avoid partial shutdown of US government. Kate Middleton announced the cancer. First Muslim American appointed for federal appeal court. A terrorist attack in Moscow by ISIS. Differences between Israel and America over the Gaza situation. Anthony Blinken met Netanyahu. Palestinian death count 32,000. Russian-China veto in United Nations. Russian missiles destroyed power plant in Ukraine. Energy stopped for 1 million people. Trump's social media company merger. Wall Street was mixed yesterday. The Dow Jones Industrial dropped. S&P went down. Mr. Biden and his students loan. Nasdaq went up. Now the news in detail. Kidney transplant to the human. Now the news in detail.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israel is continuing its relentless assault on the Gaza Strip, with deaths reported earlier today in residential areas of Gaza City, Rafah, and Khan Yunis. Meanwhile, the deadly raid on Al-Shifa Hospital is in its fifth day. Israeli soldiers have killed at least 140 people at Al-Shifa. Journalists and medical staff have been blindfolded and forced to strip naked. At least 13 patients have died in recent days due to a lack of medical treatment. Israeli forces ordered thousands of patients, staff, and displaced people sheltering at the hospital to evacuate as they threaten to blow up the entire facility. Families who were already displaced and are once again on the move describe their brutal eviction from Al-Shifa.
We were surprised that at 2 a.m. there was shelling. The children were terrified. What more can I tell you? We stayed until the morning. We were not allowed to go down or up. They were calling with the loudspeakers from downstairs for men to prepare themselves, that the emergency team should prepare itself. The court outside with the bulldozers, the tanks, they turned things upside down. I don't know what more to tell you. The children were terrified. They turned things upside down in Al-Shifa, in the area of Al-Shifa. They didn't care about a child or a pregnant woman or youth or anything.
Al Jazeera has shared video that appears to show an Israeli drone targeting, then launching an air attack on a group of at least 4 unarmed civilians as they were walking in an open area of Khan Yunis in Gaza. One young man who survived the first bombing attempts to leave the scene before being killed in another strike. The shocking video is said to date back to February, but was released on Thursday. This all comes as U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken held a meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Tel Aviv today, and is meeting with other Israeli officials in the war cabinet. The U.S. is now pushing for a ceasefire deal in exchange for the release of hostages. Blinken just wrapped up meetings with Arab leaders in Saudi Arabia and Cairo, Egypt, where he said, quote, children should not be dying of malnutrition in Gaza, adding, quote, 100% of the population of Gaza is experiencing severe levels of acute food insecurity, Blinken said. The head of Israel's Mossad spy agency is meeting with CIA Director William Burns and Egyptian counterparts for talks around ceasefire in Qatar. Meanwhile, over 70 former U.S. diplomats, government, military officials have urged President Biden to warn Israel against building illegal settlements in the occupied West Bank and denying Palestinian rights. The officials, which include Clinton National Security Advisor Anthony Lake and other White House, Pentagon, and State Department diplomats, say the U.S. should be prepared to withhold assistance to Israel. Israel's killed at least 430 Palestinians in the West Bank since October 7th, including 10 people Thursday alone. Among those killed yesterday was a 19-year-old teenager and a 63-year-old man who converted to Judaism, but was reportedly, quote, mistakenly shot. Israeli forces have detained over 7,300 West Bank Palestinians since October 7th. UN officials continue to sound the alarm over the humanitarian crisis in Sudan, which they've described as one of the worst in recent history. The UN Security Council met Wednesday to discuss the conflict as it nears the 1-year mark since fighting broke out between the Sudanese military and rival rapid support forces. Edem Wasornu, the director of operations for the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, warns Sudan is possibly on course to become the world's worst hunger crisis.
Malnutrition is soaring to alarming levels and is already claiming children's lives. A recent MSF report revealed that 1 child is dying every 2 hours in Zamzam camp in El Fasher, North Darfur. Our humanitarian partners estimate that in the coming weeks and months, somewhere in the region of around 222,000 children could die from malnutrition. And with the estimated, WHO estimates that more than 70% of health facilities are not functional.
In Haiti, armed groups have launched new attacks and blockades in the suburbs near Port-au-Prince, with multiple deaths reported. Haitian police say an operation killed the head of Delma 95, Ernst Julma, known as Tigreg. Delma 95 is part of Jimmy Charissier's alliance of armed groups. The U.S. State Department Wednesday confirmed it had completed the first evacuation of more than 15 U.S. citizens from Port-au-Prince. Florida officials also chartered a plane to evacuate over a dozen residents of Florida from Haiti Wednesday. Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis has warned he'll block the entry of undocumented Haitian immigrants into Florida and threatened to fly any undocumented Haitians who arrive in Florida to Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. This comes as dozens of Congress members are urging the Biden administration to stop deportations to Haiti due to the worsening violence and instability and to extend temporary protected status, TPS, for Haitians. Over 70 Rohingya refugees are believed to be dead or missing after their boat capsized off the coast of Indonesia's Aceh province. At least 75 others have been rescued as of Friday. More than 2,300 Rohingya refugees fleeing persecution in Burma arrived in Indonesia last year, while hundreds of others have died or disappeared after attempting to leave Burma or Bangladesh. French lawmakers advanced a bill that seeks to rein in fast fashion's impact on the climate, labor rights, and the economy. The bill would ban certain ultra-fast fashion companies like Shein from advertising and penalize them by up to €10 per individual item of clothing. It also would force fast fashion retailers to include information on their products' reuse, repair, recycling, and environmental impact next to the product's price. This is French lawmaker Huguette Pienya.
Lutter contre la fast fashion.
Fighting fast fashion means, first, protecting children living in other countries. It means preserving our biodiversity. It means preserving our French know-how. It means preserving our artisans who work hard day and night in our districts to create clothes that are sustainable and that comply with a minimum of environmental rules.
Russia launched a massive attack on Ukraine's energy system overnight, killing 3 people, leaving 1 million people without power. The attacks triggered a fire at the Dnipro hydroelectric station, cutting off power to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, but authorities said there was no risk of a breach. This comes just 1 day after U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan visited Kiev, the Ukrainian capital. Back in the U.S., the Justice Department has filed a sweeping antitrust lawsuit against Apple, accusing the tech giant of orchestrating an illegal monopoly in the smartphone industry. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland announced the suit Thursday.
Apple carries out its exclusionary anti-competitive conduct in 2 principal ways. First, Apple imposes contractual restrictions and fees that limit the features and functionality that developers can offer iPhone users. Second, Apple selectively restricts access to the points of connection between third-party apps and the iPhone's operating system, degrading the functionality of non-Apple apps and accessories. As a result, for most of the past 15 years, Apple has collected a tax in the form of a 30% commission on the price of any app downloaded from the App Store, as well as on in-app purchases.
In Florida, Republican Governor Ron DeSantis signed a new law banning unhoused people from sleeping in public places such as parks and sidewalks. The law requires counties to establish temporary campsites if shelters are at maximum capacity. Under the law, individuals can sue a jurisdiction if they see people living on the streets. Housing advocates and other critics say the law does not effectively address the housing crisis or provide necessary funding, and further marginalizes the already vulnerable unhoused population. Here in New York, home health aides are on a 5-day hunger strike, calling on the city to pass the No More 24 Act to put an end to 24-hour workdays. The majority of home health workers are women of color and immigrant women. Wu Hua Song from the Chinese Staff and Workers Association said, quote, "Working 24 hours a day for a long time, our bodies have been tortured, broken down, and full of aches and pains. We cannot care for our children and families. Many of our sisters' health is destroyed, and they too have become patients," they said. In more labor news, Georgia Republicans passed a bill that penalizes union-friendly employers. The legislation would bar workplaces that voluntarily recognize unions from receiving state subsidies. Republican Governor Brian Kemp backs the law, but it's expected to face tough legal challenges. The president of the AFL-CIO, Liz Schuler, called the measure appalling, adding that it, quote, violates long-held precedent established by the National Labor Relations Board Act. And Senator Bernie Sanders and Congressmember Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez reintroduced the Green New Deal for Public Housing Act this week to address the dual crises of climate change and unaffordable housing. This is AOC.
Green New Deal for public housing would immediately replenish the multi-billion-dollar backlog for public housing repairs. It would repeal the Fair Cloth Amendment. It would invest up to $234 billion over 10 years to preserve, upgrade, and expand our public housing stock. It would bring public housing down to 0 carbon emissions while creating 280,000 jobs in America. It would end the era of government neglect, demolition, and privatization of our public housing stock. This bill also addresses unsustainable rent prices.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
It has been an incredibly tough couple of months for our entire family.
Breaking news, the health crisis rocking the royal family.
In January, I underwent major abdominal surgery in London. Tests after the operation found cancer had been present.
Princess Catherine reveals she has cancer, what she says about her condition and her message of resilience.
For everyone facing this disease, in whatever form, please do not lose faith or hope. You are not alone.
The CBS Evening News starts now. Good evening, I'm Nora O'Donnell, and thank you for being with us. We want to begin tonight with the shocking news that the Princess of Wales, Catherine, just 42 years old, has been secretly battling cancer. In an emotional message filmed at Windsor Castle 2 days ago, the princess revealed the news came as a surprise. She had major abdominal surgery in January, then she spent 2 weeks in the hospital. Follow-up tests showed the cancer. The mother have young kids, is currently in the early stages of chemotherapy treatment. The palace did not share the type of cancer, but after a tough couple of months, Catherine says she is doing well and getting stronger. King Charles announced his own cancer diagnosis in February, which was diagnosed while he was undergoing treatment for an enlarged prostate. Well, tonight, King Charles breaking his silence on Kate in a statement, saying he is, quote, so proud of Catherine for her courage in speaking as she did. CBS's Charlie Daggett will start us off tonight with the new details.
In January, I underwent major abdominal surgery in London, and at the time, it was thought that my condition was non-cancerous. The surgery was successful. However, tests after the operation found cancer had been present.
A stunning public address about a very private matter following weeks of speculation about Kate's well-being and whereabouts after that surgery back in January. And the cruel conspiracy theories on social media, especially after that family photo Kate had to apologize for badly photoshopping a couple of weeks ago.
She hopes that with this announcement, that a lot of that social media, wild stuff on social media, and some of the more insensitive media coverage will quieten down. That is very much their hope.
To the world, she's Catherine, the Princess of Wales. But firstly, a 42-year-old mother of 3 young children, Prince George, 10, Princess Charlotte, 8, and Prince Louis, just 5. Which is why they timed the announcement to today's Easter break when the children were off school for a few weeks.
Most importantly, it has taken us time to explain everything to George, Charlotte, and Louis in a way that's appropriate for them, and to reassure them that I'm going to be okay.
Palace sources tell CBS News she's already begun the early stages of a course of preventative chemotherapy. They won't say what type of cancer or exactly when she was diagnosed, and they made clear they won't be sharing that information. But it comes on the heels of King Charles's cancer announcement in early February, and she finished by adding there was another reason she wanted to share the news.
At this time, I'm also thinking of all those whose lives have been affected by cancer. For everyone facing this disease, in whatever form, please do not lose faith or hope. You are not alone.
Tonight, there's a brief statement from Prince Harry and Meghan. They say they wish health and healing for Kate and the family and hope they're able to do so privately and in peace. Nora?
Charlie D'Agata, thank you. Now let's bring in CBS News Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. John LaPook. So good to have you because there are so many questions. So when the palace says they found the cancer after the major abdominal surgery, what does that tell us?
You know, when I heard that news, it said to me that maybe this cancer was found at a relatively early stage when it's potentially most curable, because it was planned surgery. So, you know, they must have done scans beforehand, say a CAT scan. They didn't see evidence of cancer on the CAT scan. Then they did an operation. They were inside the abdominal cavity, actually looking inside. They didn't see any evidence of cancer. And it was only afterwards, they said there were tests afterwards that showed the cancer. They don't tell us exactly what that was, but let's say potentially it was a surgical specimen and they sliced it open. They saw evidence of microscopic cancer cells. So that would say to me, well, this is relatively an early stage. You know, they didn't expect it. They kind of almost tripped over that diagnosis.
And what about when she says preventive chemotherapy? What does that do?
What you're doing with chemotherapy early on is you're saying, well, maybe there are some microscopic cells, cancer cells that are inside the body, but you don't know where they are. And so if you give chemotherapy early, before they've had a chance to grow up and form clumps and spread to other parts of the body, form metastases, if you can get chemotherapy early when they're most vulnerable, maybe you can kill those cancer cells and prevent more advanced cancer from occurring later on.
Important information, as always. Thank you, Dr. John LaPook.
Thanks, Nora.
We turn now to a horrific attack today in the heart of Russia. Heavily armed gunmen opening fire in a concert hall in a suburb of Moscow before the building went up in flames. Russian media reports dozens are dead and more than 100 wounded. ISIS is claiming responsibility for the attack. And earlier this month, we have learned the U.S. warned the Kremlin about the terror group wanting to strike Russia. We get details from CBS's Deborah Pata. We do want to warn you that some of the images are graphic.
It was a scene of chaos and terror as several armed men dressed in camouflage burst into Crocus City Hall, a popular concert venue and shopping mall on the outskirts of Moscow. Video posted on social media shows concert goers screaming and ducking for cover as the gunmen opened fire. Some were trapped in the basement. We ended up breaking down the door, this man said. We couldn't see who was shooting, we just heard it. Another video shows the gunmen moving through the mall, firing incessantly, often at point-blank range, leaving at least 40 killed and dozens injured.
The images are just horrible and just hard to watch, and our thoughts, obviously, are going to be with the victims of this terrible, terrible shooting attack.
The building was engulfed in flames with smoke billowing from it. The US Embassy recently warned about the threat of terrorist attacks in Moscow and advised Americans to stay away from concert venues. A US source familiar with the intelligence told CBS News there's been a steady stream of intelligence dating back to November about ISIS wanting to strike in Russia. But we've been told there is no known threat to the US emanating from the attack near Moscow. Deborah Patter, CBS News.
I want to turn now to some breaking news from the Austin, Texas area. There has been a major crash involving a school bus packed with preschoolers on their way home from the zoo. CBS's Omar Villafranca reports there have been fatalities.
They're advising a school bus with 44 students rolled over. A trip to the zoo turns deadly on a Texas highway when a concrete truck collides with a school bus full of pre-K students in western Bastrop County, about 20 miles southeast of Austin. It happened shortly after 2 p.m. local time.
We do have one child with a sheriff officer, head trauma, and then we do have one teacher inside the bus.
Hayes Consolidated School District says the bus was returning from a field trip to the Bastrop Zoo. 44 students from Tom Green Elementary and 11 adults were on board. At least 2 people were killed. Motorist Eric Anaya arrived just after the accident happened.
We don't like to see somebody lose their lives. It's just a good thing that my family was there to help us.
We don't know who the 2 victims were that died. The school district has notified parents and a reunification center has been set up. Nora?
Very scary. Omar Villafranca, thank you so much. Well, tonight more than 18 million Americans are under winter storm alerts from Michigan to Maine. Parts of the Midwest have already gotten a significant blast of spring snow, causing dangerously slick roads during the morning commute. Let's bring in meteorologist Chris Warren from our partners at the Weather Channel. Good evening, Chris.
Good evening, Nora. The snow we've seen today, just a taste of what's to come. The snow's really going to pick up during the overnight hours tonight here in the Northeast. Also, heavy rain, both of which will be in full swing during the day tomorrow. By the time the snow moves out, 1.5 feet to even 2 feet of snow will be on the ground. 3 to 5 and even 2 to 3 inches of rain could cause some flooding in the coastal areas with some strong winds, possibly gusting up to 50 miles an hour. Coastal flooding also a possibility. Then the next big system taking shape by the end of the weekend into early next week. Also expecting a couple of feet of snow in the upper Midwest. And Nora, at times, travel will be treacherous.
Chris Warren, thank you. There are new developments tonight in the brazen escape and capture of an Idaho prison inmate and his accomplice. Police say the white supremacist gang members are now suspected in the killing of 2 men while they were on the run. CBS's Carter Evans has the new details on how the 36-hour manhunt finally came to an end.
The warrant's been served on you out of Data County. That's on a charge of felony escape.
Back in a prison jumpsuit, recaptured inmate Skylar Mead showed no emotion in court today. Neither did his alleged accomplice, Nicholas Umfenauer. Both remain in custody with stepped-up security. Also appearing from jail, 52-year-old Tanya Huber.
You're charged here with harboring a fugitive.
Prosecutors say she drove more than 100 miles per hour to help the suspects elude police. Investigators say on Wednesday, Mead deliberately injured himself in prison to get taken to the hospital, and when he was about to be transported back, Umfenauer opened fire on corrections officers.
We're channeling every resource we have and trying to understand exactly how they went about planning it.
Police say the 2 fugitives fled in a Honda Civic North, where they encountered 83-year-old James Monty walking his dogs near Julietta and stole his minivan. Monty's body was found near the abandoned Honda. Later that same day, deputies found prison leg shackles at another homicide scene and James Monty's dogs. On Thursday, police spotted the stolen minivan at a home near Twin Falls and say Mead and Umfenauer both took off in separate vehicles with police in pursuit. Tow truck driver Dan Killinger says it was a wild scene.
The escapee jumped the canal, just like Dukes of Hazzard.
How far do you think they went in the air?
Probably 25, 30 feet on the other side before they landed. It's a good day in Idaho when they catch people like that, you know.
What investigators still want to know is how Mead was able to orchestrate this escape when he spent most of his time in solitary confinement. Both suspects will now face a series of charges in the other Idaho counties where they allegedly committed crimes. Nora?
What a story. Carter Evans, thank you. A tragic update in the search for missing University of Missouri student Riley Strain. Police in Nashville say the 22-year-old's body was found in a river about 8 miles from downtown. He was visiting on a fraternity trip and was last spotted on surveillance video 2 weeks ago, stumbling through the streets after he was kicked out of a bar. Investigators are waiting for results of an autopsy, but say they don't suspect foul play. At the UN Security Council today, China and Russia vetoed a U.S.-sponsored resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and the release of hostages held by Hamas. Now, the U.S. has previously vetoed 3 resolutions. This comes as Secretary of State Antony Blinken put face-to-face pressure on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today over Israel's planned offensive in the city of Rafah in southern Gaza. The Biden administration is concerned about further civilian casualties, and they have asked Israeli officials to come to the White House next week to discuss the operation. Now to Capitol Hill and the race to prevent another government shutdown. The House today approved a $1.2 trillion spending package amid a divided Congress and new calls for the removal of Republican Speaker Mike Johnson. The bill now moves to the Senate, where a final vote could come late tonight. CBS Scott McFarland is there.
For the 4th time since October, Congress waited until the 11th hour. The House just narrowly passing a $1.2 trillion spending bill to avoid a federal government shutdown. The plan gives the military a pay raise, funds thousands more border agents, expands some child care benefits, but cuts foreign aid, government diversity programs, and the IRS.
Is now recognized.
Despite those cuts, Democrats voted for it overwhelmingly.
And this is a good result for the American people.
The bill faced a wave of Republican opposition, and its passage may have come with a cost for Speaker Mike Johnson, who helped round up support.
Today I filed a motion to vacate.
Georgia Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene, a staunch Trump ally, said it wasn't strong enough on border security, and that it was time for Johnson to go.
It's time for us to go through the process, take our time, and find a new Speaker of the House that will stand with Republicans and our Republican majority.
Greene's GOP colleagues were not supportive.
This idea of ousting the speaker, what do you make of that?
I don't like it at all. I think it's a very dumb move.
I'm going to vote for him anyway.
Some Democrats say they'd swoop in and save Johnson if needed.
Going for a speaker's fight again is absurd. We can't let these jokers have control of the United States Congress.
Dysfunction on Capitol Hill has led to a wave of early GOP retirements. 40-year-old Wisconsin Republican Mike Gallagher announced he'll leave next month. Another blow to Speaker Johnson's wafer-thin Republican majority.
The Senate will debate late into the night before it votes to avert a shutdown, but there's no aid for Ukraine in this package. That means the money will have to wait at least 2 more weeks, Nora, because Congress is about to embark on a 2-week spring recess.
A lot of news up there today, Scott McFarland. Thank you so much. We're getting our first look at how a stowaway boarded a Delta passenger jet. That's next. Tonight, CBS News has obtained airport security video of Sunday's stowaway incident in Salt Lake City. A Texas man was arrested after he boarded a Delta plane after allegedly taking a photo of another passenger's boarding pass. CBS's Chris Van Cleve has the new information.
The newly obtained airport security video shows suspected airplane stowaway Wycliffe Florizard appearing to take pictures of another passenger's boarding pass, and then here looks to be zooming in to check his photography skills. The charging documents say the 26-year-old had a standby ticket or buddy pass on Southwest to fly home to Texas from Salt Lake City Sunday after a snowboarding trip. He used that ticket to get past TSA security, but once he realized those Southwest flights were full, he decided to try to get on a Delta flight that was set to depart for Austin. That's where he's caught on camera allegedly snapping pictures of boarding passes, which he then uses to board the plane.
It's clear that there were security gaps in place here, and it's critical that the aircraft carrier take steps to address them immediately in close coordination with federal authorities.
The criminal complaint charging him with a felony alleges once on board, he hid in the bathroom until the plane left the gate. When he came out, as the plane was taxiing, flight attendants realized he was on board illegally as every seat on the plane was full. The flight returned to the gate, and Florizard was met by police, who are seen questioning him and eventually handcuffing the Texas resident. He allegedly told officers he made a mistake trying to get home. Former TSA Administrator John Pistol.
Did the system work here?
The system worked in terms of the outcome, but not in terms of how it's designed to prevent people boarding the plane without their own boarding pass.
He now faces up to 5 years behind bars if convicted. Chris Van Cleve, CBS News.
What a story. Who wants to be an instant billionaire or very close to it? 2 mega jackpots are on the line this weekend. That's next. More than $1.7 billion in lottery loot is up for grabs this weekend. Tonight's Mega Millions jackpot has grown to $977 million. That's the 6th largest prize in the game's history. The cash option would be $467 million before taxes. And tomorrow night's Powerball jackpot now stands at $750 million with a cash option of more than $360 million. Heart of America is next with one woman's big league dream of making the right call.
If you can't watch the CBS Evening News, you can listen. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Finally, tonight's Heart of America. Major League Baseball's opening day is less than a week away, and there's one woman ready to make history behind the plate and on the field. New Jersey native Jen Powell has been umpiring spring training games over the past month in Florida's Grapefruit League. She's the first woman to work a spring training game since 2007, and she's now ready for the big leagues. During her playing days, she was a standout in high school, and she played Division I softball at Hofstra University. Since then, Powell has spent 18 years honing her skills as an umpire. She is currently on the MLB's call-up list, putting her one step closer to getting behind the plate of a regular season game, something no woman has ever done.
Once I started umpiring, I was like, this is for me. And I can't explain, it's just in my DNA.
Jen Powell, that's tonight's Heart of America. Can't wait to see that. Well, that's tonight's CBS Evening News. I'm Nora O'Donnell. Good night, and have a great weekend.
Much. Joining me now is Martha McCallum, host of The Story. Martha, of course, you've been covering this all day long. There was one thing that Kate said today that I can personally empathize with. Watch this.
As you can imagine, this has taken time. It has taken me time to recover from major surgery in order to start my treatment. But most importantly, it has taken us time to explain everything to George, Charlotte and Louis in a way that's appropriate for them and to reassure them that I'm going to be okay. We hope that you'll understand that as a family, we now need some time, space and privacy while I complete my treatment.
Martha, I can't imagine, really, as a mother now, but when I had my own battle with breast cancer, I hadn't had my children yet, but I still was like, wanted privacy. I didn't want people to say, how are you doing? Even though people meant well, you wanted to have a little cocoon of, let me just deal with this. So I totally understand what she's saying there. Take care of home front first.
Well, you've experienced it, Laura, and I spoke with my sister who's also experienced it today, and she said exactly the same thing. She said, I needed to know that I was on the road to being okay, and that I had sort of my arms wrapped around how this was all going to work before I could start talking to other people about it. And I think that is such a personal experience. I think that's what we saw today from the Princess of Wales. She was very direct, she was gracious, and she was personal. And she was actually the person that I think everyone who has watched her evolve through this process believed that she is. And there has been a lot thrown at them recently, and it's revealed that they're going through what a lot of families go through. And now they've got 2 people in the family who are battling this issue. I think it's, they shared a little, right? I mean, when Charles' cancer was diagnosed, we didn't learn what kind it is. We don't know exactly what his treatment is. But both of them went in for what they thought was one thing that turned out to be another. And that, of course, is a fear that a lot of us, everyone, I think, shares. When you have tests coming back and all of this. So I do think it was a shock, clearly. And I think it put a lot of this discussion to rest. And I think it, put people, Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, commented on, how difficult and how rude, really, so many people had been in the run-up to this. But Hillary makes a good point about the timing. And the timing was theirs. The timing wasn't pressed by the fact that everyone was circulating these vicious rumors. It was pressed by the fact that today is the day before the children's Easter break begins. And so now they could make this statement, hunker down and be together, not have the kids have to go back to school and be questioned about it, perhaps.
Martha, the New York Post is reporting that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had no idea about Kate Middleton's cancer. An insider saying that trust has been broken. And they have a very, they have a one-line statement, essentially. I think we'll put it up on the screen. That was basically, we send our well wishes and to the family, and we wish health and healing for Kate and the family, and hope they are able to do so privately and in peace. Kind of short statement for
I'm not,
your wife or your brother.
I'm not at all right. I mean, but this is a very broken relationship, and Harry and Meghan have made horrible accusations against William and Kate and the rest of the family. So it's not at all surprising to me that they weren't given a heads up about this situation. I think that they were recently dropped from the royal family website. There had been sort of a peripheral mention of them for a while, but that's not there anymore either. And I think in many ways this is going to be not the time when William is likely to want to reach out and patch things up. Maybe that comes at some point, but it doesn't feel like the statement from them was really, it didn't even need to be public. They could have just reached out privately. But it is what it is.
They are. Martha, a lot of the people, and you mentioned some of this, and going back and looking at some of the comments that have been made by people about her and about the royal family, were just so, in poor taste is one thing today, but they were cruel. And they're from some of the late night hosts and comments about what she was really doing and what she was really up to. And it kind of makes us all, I think, take a pause and realize no matter what we think about this issue or that issue, these are human beings. And we are all here for a very short period of time on this planet. And maybe a moment of humility and patience is in order for all of us, but especially these cruel people. The comments were awful.
I mean, I think there's a long history of poking fun at the royal family, and I think there's a place for that in some ways, especially in England, where they have their own relationship over all of these years with it. In this case, it does feel pretty ugly at this moment, especially after her very heartfelt announcement today. But I also think that when that vacuum existed, a lot of people sort of rushed to fill it with their ideas of what was going on. In this society that we live in, unfortunately, that is the way that things happen, and people were kind of filling in the blanks on their own. But it was unfortunate. And again, I don't think that pushed her to this moment. I think the timing was very much on her own schedule in terms of her own process with her treatments and the children. She kind of does things her own way, and I think we saw that today.
Martha, thank you so much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube.
Tonight, the Princess of Wales reveals she has cancer. Catherine, in her own words, her voice breaking at times, the message she put out late today. Also tonight, this horrific terror attack in Russia, a Moscow concert hall, and just in tonight, ISIS now claiming responsibility. And the storm here at home tonight in the Northeast, winter storm and flash flood alerts right now. First tonight, Princess Catherine's cancer diagnosis. Her video message sharing that she's being treated for cancer. She's now undergoing preventative chemotherapy. She calls the diagnosis a huge shock to both her and Prince William. Catherine revealing she needed time to explain her condition to their 3 young children. You will hear Catherine's message. Also the breaking news, the horrific scene unfolding in Moscow, the images coming in. A deadly terror attack inside a concert hall, a mass shooting and explosions, dozens killed, the building in flames. ISIS claiming responsibility, and Martha Raddatz standing by with what the U.S. had just warned of. Back in this country, the school bus and a deadly crash tonight. At least 2 dead. The bus with preschoolers on board, returning from a field trip to the zoo, colliding with a concrete truck and another vehicle. In the Northeast tonight, the 2 powerful storms set to combine just as we start the weekend. Winter weather alerts from Michigan over to Maine, flash flood watches from Washington, D.C. to New York City to Boston. Rob Marciano timing it out. The alarming images from the southern border, a group of migrants storming a barbed wire fence in Texas. National Guard troops overwhelmed. Berea Villarreal at the border. Tonight, the new Republican revolt in the House immediately after the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, relied on Republicans and Democrats to pass a spending bill to keep the government open. The far-right Republican tonight filing a motion to oust the House Speaker again. There is news coming in tonight in the search for that missing college student in Nashville last seen on police video. The sad discovery just in tonight. And the breaking headline also coming in involving Major League Baseball's highest paid star and his friend and interpreter amid that gambling scandal. What Major League Baseball is now saying tonight.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening. It is great to have you with us as we near the end of another week together. We do have late reporting coming in on that breaking news, that horrific terror attack in Moscow, a claim of responsibility just in. But we do begin tonight with the other global headline late today, Princess Catherine revealing she is being treated for cancer. The Princess of Wales delivering a video message to the world saying she is undergoing preventative chemotherapy. She says she underwent abdominal surgery in January, that they believed at the time it was non-cancerous. Tests later showing there was cancer. Buckingham Palace is not revealing what type of cancer, saying she has a right to privacy just as anyone does. Princess Catherine has been out of the public eye for months. TMZ obtaining video in recent days showing her with Prince William at this farm in Windsor. Tonight, Catherine calling the diagnosis a huge shock to both her and her husband. Princess Catherine saying it took time for her to explain this to their children before going public. ABC's Maggie Rulli in London, leading us off.
Tonight, the deeply personal message from Catherine, the Princess of Wales.
It has been an incredibly tough couple of months for our entire family, but I've had a fantastic medical team who've taken great care of me, for which I'm so grateful.
The Princess revealing her cancer diagnosis.
In January, I underwent major abdominal surgery in London, and at the time, it was thought that my condition was non-cancerous. The surgery was successful. However, tests after the operation found cancer had been present. My medical team therefore advised that I should undergo a course of preventative chemotherapy, and I'm now in the early stages of that treatment.
Catherine, just 42, describing how she and her family have coped with the devastating diagnosis.
This, of course, came as a huge shock, and William and I have been doing everything we can to process and manage this privately for the sake of our young family. As you can imagine, this has taken time. It has taken me time to recover from major surgery in order to start my treatment. But most importantly, it has taken us time to explain everything to George, Charlotte, and Louis in a way that's appropriate for them, and to reassure them that I'm going to be okay.
The princess sharing how she comforted her 3 young children.
As I said to them, I am well, and getting stronger every day by focusing on the things that will help me heal in my mind, body, and spirits. Having William by my side is a great source of comfort and reassurance too, as is the love, support, and kindness that has been shown by so many of you. It means so much to us both.
The shocking news coming just after King Charles was also diagnosed with an undisclosed form of cancer. The king undergoing surgery at the same time and at the same hospital as his daughter-in-law. The palace tonight saying His Majesty is so proud of Catherine for her courage and in speaking as she did.
This is a completely unprecedented situation for us to be in this country, where you have a family that's been through many ups and downs in the past few years, and now they have 2 family members who are very ill, and the concern is for them.
Catherine had been extremely private about her health and hadn't been seen in public since Christmas, posting this Mother's Day photo with her children, Prince George, 10, Princess Charlotte, 8, and Prince Louis, who turns 6 next month. It was later found the photo was edited, that and her public absence only increasing concern over Princess Catherine's health. Then she was recently seen in this video, captured by TMZ, Catherine and her husband Prince William grocery shopping near their home in Windsor, where she had been recovering.
The absolute dominant thing for them is protecting their children. George, Charlotte, and Louis, they've just broken up from school, so William and Kate can really kind of take them off right now and have them in a bubble and protect them while this news is hitting the world.
But for now,
the princess emotional, speaking to the millions of families like hers.
At this time, I'm also thinking of all those whose lives have been affected by cancer. For everyone facing this disease, in whatever form, please do not lose faith or hope. You are not alone.
It was a remarkably moving moment today when that video message was made public. Let's bring in Maggie Rulli. She's live at Buckingham Palace tonight. And Maggie, the palace will only say that Catherine is undergoing preventative chemotherapy. We were on the air with our special reporter medical team telling us that that could mean a number of things, that doctors might believe the cancer is gone and that they're taking preventative steps, or that the treatment could be actually targeting cancer. They're not saying, of course. We also don't know the type of cancer or the stage. And we know tonight the royal family is really trying to keep some privacy here as she goes through this.
Yeah, exactly, David. All we know right now is that this all started with that abdominal surgery in January. Now, the princess says at the time, it's thought that her condition was non-cancerous, but pathology revealed this cancer. The palace, again, not revealing what kind or stage of cancer Catherine's currently being treated for, but we just heard from the princess there, David. She is saying she is well, she is getting stronger every day, and right now she is focusing on making a full recovery. David.
People around the world tonight are calling for Princess Catherine. Very brave message today. Maggie Rulli tonight, thank you. We turn now to the other major breaking story tonight, a deadly terror attack inside a concert hall in Moscow. A mass shooting and explosions, dozens killed, more than 100 wounded. The horrific images coming in tonight. You can see the video there showing several heavily armed gunmen, some in camouflage, opening fire on the crowd. Many were in their seats before the start of the concert. The building then in flames, the roof collapsing just before we came on the air tonight here. ISIS now claiming responsibility. And tonight, Martha Raddatz telling us this attack comes after a recent warning from the U.S. about the threat environment.
Tonight, terror in Moscow. Multiple gunmen slaughtering more than 40 and wounding more than 100 inside one of Russia's largest concert and shopping complexes. Video showing concertgoers inside the 7,000-seat Crocus concert hall waiting for the show to begin. Ducking and screaming when the gunfire erupts, hiding under the seats. Taking cover in the lobby, the automatic weapons firing relentlessly. Video circulating online showing 2 of the multiple gunmen as they stormed the entrance to the complex, firing on patrons as they make their way inside. This man evacuated from the basement, saying the gunmen threw Molotov cocktails after the rampage. Black smoke and flames pouring from the complex, caving in the roof. A massive response by police, fire, and the military. Helicopters dropping water from above, an unknown number of people trapped inside. And tonight, David, the terrorist group ISIS is claiming responsibility for this attack. It comes just 2 weeks after the U.S. State Department warned about possible extremist attacks in Russia and specifically at concert venues, advising Americans there to avoid crowded areas. An official telling ABC News tonight that the U.S. shared the intelligence with Russia that there was an imminent threat from ISIS. David?
Those horrific images coming in tonight. Martha Raddatz with late reporting. Martha, thank you. Meantime, inside Ukraine tonight, Russia unleashing its biggest aerial attack on Ukraine's energy infrastructure since this war began. Russia launching more than 150 missiles and drones, at least 5 people killed, including an 8-year-old girl and her father. Dozens more wounded. More than 4 million without power tonight. The Kremlin claiming this is retaliation for Ukrainian drone strikes inside Russia. Back here in the U.S. tonight, into the deadly school bus crash outside Austin, Texas. The bus with preschoolers returning from a field trip to the zoo, colliding with a concrete truck and another vehicle. Here's ABC's Mola Lengi.
Tonight, a harrowing scene in Central Texas. At least 2 dead, including a young child, and more than 40 others injured after a bus filled with preschoolers crashed while returning from a field trip to the zoo.
They're advising a school bus with 44 students rolled over.
The incident taking place just before 2 p.m. local time on State Highway 21 in Baxter County, just outside of Austin. Officials say the bus was struck by a concrete truck and another passenger vehicle.
Other vehicles involved, one being a concrete truck that also rolled over and a possible dead body at the location.
The severely damaged bus coming to a rest on the side of the highway. Multiple helicopters and ambulances responding to the scene, including a bus ambulance capable of transporting 20 patients.
Well, officials say there were 44 children and 11 adults on that school bus. Tonight, authorities working to reunite them with their families. Mola Lengi with us. Thank you, Mola. Now to the storm threat tonight in the Northeast. 2 powerful storms combining just as we start the weekend. Winter weather alerts from Michigan all the way over to Maine. Flash flood watches from Washington, D.C. up through New York City, right up to Boston. Let's get right to senior meteorologist Rob Marciano back with us tonight. Hey, Rob.
Hi, David. You're right about those 2 waves converging right over the east. That's still on track. Flash flood watches have been expanded from the mid-Atlantic to the Northeast, and winter storm warnings now. That's the pink you see for northern New England. Some snows in Chicago, cold rain in Pittsburgh, that low in the southeast, rain from Memphis to Atlanta, rolling up into the northeast. Look at that squeeze by very heavy rain across I-95 tomorrow afternoon. Widespread flash flooding, certainly be some urban flooding as well. Clearing out Sunday, but 1 to 2 feet of wet wet snow across northern New England. You should prep your property tonight and try not to travel across the Northeast tomorrow. David?
Good advice indeed. Rob Marciano. Rob, thanks for this week. Now to the southern border tonight, and we're learning more about those alarming images. A group of migrants storming a barbed wire fence in Texas. National Guard troops were overwhelmed. ABC's Maria Villarreal at the border force tonight.
Tonight, alarming video from the U.S.-Mexico border. A group of migrants pulling down razor wire, breaking through this fencing. A handful of Texas guardsmen pushing them away as they stormed toward the border wall. Sources tell ABC News a group of migrants had been staging in this area in El Paso, waiting for Border Patrol agents to arrive. Within hours, about 500 turning themselves in to Border Patrol agents for processing. The Rio Grande River is the international boundary dividing Mexico and the U.S. along most of Texas. After crossing, migrants face these two razor wire fences patrolled by the Texas National Guard before they can reach the federal border wall controlled by federal agents. Texas Governor Greg Abbott now saying they are redoubling the razor wire barriers, all while a controversial law that would allow Texas to arrest, deport, or imprison anyone they believe may have entered the state illegally is on hold pending an appeals court ruling. The razor wire, that's him. The National Guards, that's him. The Border Patrol agents still did their job, even though the governor's plans got in the way.
David, CBP confirms that they will be sending additional personnel to the affected area. And just a reminder, not everybody in that group is going to get to stay in the U.S. and plead their cases for asylum. In fact, since May of last year, we've seen at least 600,000 unauthorized migrants be deported or returned back to their home country. That's the most of any year since 2012. David?
Maria Villarreal tonight. Maria, thank you. We turned out of Capitol Hill into the newest attempt at a Republican revolt in the House. Right after the House Speaker today, Mike Johnson, relied on both Republicans and Democrats to pass a spending bill to keep the government open. The far-right Republican tonight filing a motion to oust yet another House Speaker. Rachel Scott on the Hill.
Tonight, with just hours to spare, Speaker Mike Johnson resisting pressure from far-right Republicans, putting a bill on the House floor to avert a government shutdown. The $1.2 trillion package passing.
The resolution is agreed to.
Democrats carrying it across the finish line. The bill provides more funding for Homeland Security, Health and Human Services, and labor. It also included money for 2,000 new Border Patrol agents and 8,000 detention beds for migrants. Some Republicans demanding more on immigration.
We got to regroup after this and get serious about some real cuts in wasteful spending and in securing the border.
The House Republicans torpedoed a border bill their own party negotiated. It could all now put Speaker Johnson's job in jeopardy. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene calling it a betrayal that Johnson worked with Democrats, taking the first step to try to oust him. The bottom line, you want Speaker Johnson out.
I wouldn't have filed a motion to vacate if I didn't. We need a new speaker. This is not personal against Mike Johnson. He's a very good man, and I have respect for him as a person, but he is not doing the job.
Just months ago, Kevin McCarthy was removed as speaker after he turned to Democrats and Republicans to reach a deal to fund the government.
I don't see how she could possibly think this will benefit anyone or the American people.
The Senate now preparing to work through the night to get that bill passed and avert a government shutdown. As for that push to try to oust Mike Johnson, yet another speaker, it's unclear how Republicans plan to move forward. House is now out on recess for 2 weeks, David.
Rachel Scott cutting through it all for us again tonight. Rachel, thank you. Now to the Monday deadline for Donald Trump to post that $464 million bond in his New York civil fraud case. Tonight, Donald Trump now contradicting his own lawyers, who argued all week that he doesn't have the cash. Trump now says he has nearly $500 million in cash. Here's Aaron Katursky.
All week, his lawyers have insisted Donald Trump lacks the cash he needs to secure a bond to cover a nearly $500 million civil fraud judgment. Tonight, Trump is claiming he does. He just wants to spend it elsewhere. I currently have almost $500 million in cash, Trump wrote on social media, a substantial amount of which I intended to use in my campaign. But Trump hasn't offered any proof he actually has $500 million in cash, and Trump hasn't put any of his own money into his campaign since 2016. The former president has until Monday to post a bond, where New York Attorney General Letitia James told us she'll take action.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
But tonight, a potentially new source of income for Trump. Investors voting today to take Trump's struggling social media company public. His stake on paper, roughly $3 billion.
That may sound like a windfall, David, but unless Trump gets special permission from shareholders, he cannot convert that stake into cash for 6 months. David?
Aaron Katursky tonight. Thank you, Aaron. When we come back here, the news coming in that search for a missing college student near Nashville, the sad discovery. Also, there's also news coming in on Major League Baseball's highest paid star and his interpreter amid that gambling scandal. What Major League Baseball is now saying about this tonight. Tonight, a tragic end to the search for that missing college student in Nashville. The body of Riley Strain discovered in a river near Nashville. The University of Missouri student disappearing 2 weeks ago while on a college trip, last seen on police and surveillance video, stumbling after being out. Police tonight saying it does not appear foul play was involved. When we come back here tonight, the breaking headline at this hour about baseball's highest paid star amid that gambling scandal. What authorities are now saying about this. To the Index, and just in tonight, Major League Baseball saying it is opening a formal investigation into its highest paid star, the LA Dodgers Shohei Ohtani, and his friend and interpreter, Ippei Mizuhara. The interpreter is accused of stealing $4.5 million from Ohtani to cover his own gambling debts. It's unclear if Ohtani helped pay those debts or was aware of it. The interpreter was fired by the Dodgers this week. When we come back here tonight, there was one thing Princess Catherine said today in that video message that spoke volumes about the princess, aware that millions are facing the same fight. Funny tonight, Princess Catherine on a battle she knows many face. Princess Catherine is just 42 years old with 3 young children. She says she will return to public life, that she is well and getting stronger every day. But this is what she told the people of the UK, that she must focus on a full recovery.
We hope that you'll understand that as a family, we now need some time, space and privacy while I complete my treatment. My work has always brought me a deep sense of joy, and I look forward to being back when I'm able. But for now, I must focus on making a full recovery.
And Catherine, aware of her very public role, making it clear she knows she's not the only one facing this battle.
At this time, I'm also thinking of all those whose lives are being affected by cancer. For everyone facing this disease, in whatever form, please do not lose faith or hope. You are not alone.
The world pulling for her. I'll see you Monday. Good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Moore, America's most watched newscast.
Thank you for watching and privilege of your time. This is Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Woodman. Have a good life.